Hey everybody, Mr. Regan here, and up to this point, you've done a lot to create what you believe is the best egg drop pod, based on all of the materials you've been given, the ways in which the experiment is going to be run, and the cost of the general materials used to build your egg drop device. You have created models and you have done some practice tests, and we are at the point now where we are ready to start our experiment, or near ready. So for today's video, I'm going to be breaking down how to conduct a safe egg drop experiment and how to complete the next 3 tasks associated with the actual egg drop itself. So first and foremost, let's talk about a safe egg drop experiment. We know that we're going to be dropping our egg pods from the top of a stairwell. And when we get into the actual experiment itself, there's not going to be a lot of time. There's going to be a lot of people around. So we need to make sure that we conduct a safe experiment. So we have 3 general rules we need to follow as we get into that. Number 1 is we need to make sure that we follow the directions of whoever is the teacher or in charge that day. So whether it's myself, a sub, or someone else, we need to make sure we are following directions to the T. Mainly because number 1, like I said, not a lot of time. There's going to be a ton of people, and we cannot redo this egg drop if we make mistakes or if things happen. So we have to be very on point with what needs to happen. Number 2 is when we conduct the egg drop, there is going to be a designated spot below the stairwell that you're going to be dropping your egg pod. You need to make sure that you drop your egg pod on that designated spot when instructed to. We are going to be having people collecting a lot of data based on your dropping of the egg pod on that spot. And if you do not drop it on the spot, if you throw it or do something else, it will make your data invalid and unuseful. Third is if you are somebody who is dropping the egg pod, you're going to have a bunch of people at the bottom of the stairwell to help do some different jobs, whether it's collect data, clean up, that kind of stuff. We need to make sure if you're someone at the bottom of the stairwell that you keep a safe distance from the egg drop itself. We're not standing on or around the designated spot. We'll have a safe distance. That will be a part of making sure you follow the directions as to where that is. So 3 rules: following directions, dropping when and on the designated spot, and keeping a safe distance will help ensure that we have a good launch, that we collect good data, and that everything goes well. So in order to drop our final egg pod design, you're going to begin by diving into task 7, where you make a final egg drop model. Now, this model is going to be based on, you had your starting model, you had your changes you made based on the cost of materials, and then you had your changes made based on your test results. So if you remember, in task 5, you did some practice tests with your egg pod and you recorded some data, and your job was to make design changes based on how things went. So in task 7, you're going to make one final model based on all of those changes. It should look different from your model in task number 4. In task 4, this is when you made your first ideas come to life. This is going to be the one that we see, in task 7, when we're ready to drop. You'll check in once you have your final model to make sure everything has been given the green light. And then from there, you and your group are actually going to conduct your egg drop pod with the class. Now, as we collect our egg drop pod, you're going to have people doing different jobs, collecting different data, and then you're going to record that data in the team data table. Here's how the team data table works. When you click on that, you'll find this is the home page. Here, there's going to be a bunch of data on the home page, which we'll talk about as we get into the later lessons. But here's what you got to know. Down here at the very bottom, we have our different class periods. So you'll click on your class period. Let's say I'm in period 1. And in here, we have an example of how to fill out the data table. Now, don't get confused. We're going to break this down right now, along with how you're going to fill this out. So you're going to start by finding your table number. So table number 7, 8, 6, 5, and so on. When you drop the pod, you're going to have some data. You'll have the total weight of your pod. You're going to be measuring the time it takes for it to be dropped from the top to the bottom of the stairwell. You're going to be measuring the distance that it takes to drop your pod. And then you're going to be calculating the maximum impact force from there. Lastly, you're going to have your egg conclusion results. Here you're going to tell us, when you open up after dropping your pod, what happened. Was it unbroken? So everything was intact, the same egg that you put in? Was it cracked, but no yolk was coming out? Was it broken with some yolk coming out, or was it smashed and we saw every bit of the yolk in all parts? You'll select whatever it is the results were, and then you're going to give us a brief description of how you built your pod so people can look at it and see what you did. So, for example, if we're looking at the one provided to you, we have 160 inches. Everyone's dropping from the same height. We have 100 grams. When we dropped it, it took 100 seconds to drop. We measured the speed, or sorry, calculated the speed by doing the distance. So 160 inches divided by time, 100 seconds. So 1.6 inches per second. So as it was dropping, 1.6 inches every second. The maximum impact force, we did 100 grams, which is the mass, times the speed. So in that case, that was 1.6. So 100 times 1.6, that's 160 newtons. So when it hit, the maximum impact force it could have was 160 newtons. And then you'll notice that that led to a smashed egg pod or egg, lots of yolk coming out. And then this was the general description of my pod. So when you go in to your specific class period, so first, second, third, fourth, fifth, so on, you'll be filling out one set of data for your group. And that's going to be the data that you then use to complete task 9, where you make one final conclusion about what's the best way to build your pod. You're going to be using the data from not only your class, but all teams to fill out these 4 questions. We'll talk more about how to do that, but that's how we get through all 9 tasks before the final check-in. So go ahead and ask yourself, do you feel like you understand the 3 rules about how to conduct a safe experiment? Do you understand how to make your final model, collect your data, and how you're going to use that data to answer some reflection questions? If the answer is yes to all those, go ahead and put your X in green. If some of those things are confusing or you're unsure, put it in yellow or red. If you have questions, reach out. Otherwise, good luck.